let me take you to the ancient city of Athens. This is the book of Acts, chapter 17. The book of Acts, chapter 17. And you remember that one day, Apostle Paul came to the city of Athens. And the city of Athens is one of the cities which was the cradle of civilization. I can imagine that probably Paul was a little bit intimidated because he was coming from not such important city of Tarsus. Luke says in the book of Acts that he was meeting in the streets of Athens Epicurean and Stoic philosophers. On a daily basis, he was going to the marketplace and he was meeting with the people and discussing with them. So Epicurus believed that the existence of gods, many gods, it was a polytheistic world, that the existence of God is an obstacle to human happiness. And then there was another obstacle for Epicurus for human happiness, and it was the existence of death. And this problem is still the greatest, I think, obstacle to human happiness. And Epicurus came with a famous sentence that everybody knows in philosophy. He said, "Where death is, we are not. Where we are, death is not." Meaning, when we die, we are not going to be there. This is the end of everything. And there was another philosophical group there that Apostle Paul met on that day. And they were called Stoicism, Stoics. And they were kind of pantheists. They did not believe that God is a person, but he is kind of force or power which permeates the whole of reality. And Apostle Paul is going to speak about God, who is the person who created the world. Paul starts with creation of the world. And they said, let's see what this bubbler has to say. And then comes Apostle Paul, and he speaks to Epicurean and Stoic philosophers about somebody from Palestine who said, I am the truth. The only truth, not Socrates, not Plato, not Aristotle. Was Paul naive about his mission in the city of Athens? But just remember, brothers and sisters, that Paul was not any kind of person. He was the prophet of God. He had two different pairs of eyes. He had physical eyes, but he also had spiritual eyes. Because Paul knew that Alexander the Great, Spartans, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, they cannot help the citizens of Athens. There was only one person under the sun. Somebody who conquered the death could help them. And with his prophetic eyes, he could see the real needs of the city of Athens. For Paul, Athens is nothing but destruction and ruin if they don't come to the knowledge of Jesus. And he would speak with great assurance there about the God who created the world and about the God who revealed himself in the person of Jesus, and he resurrected him from the dead. This is the only hope, says Paul to the Athenians. It was the prophetic vision for the lost world that Apostle Paul demonstrated on that day when he was standing on Areopagus. Brothers and sisters, I firmly believe that prophetic vision for the lost world has been given to the Adventist Church through the writings of Ellen White. It was in 1892. Ellen White was in Melbourne, Australia. And it was at the opening of Melbourne School, Bible College. Ellen White stood to the pulpit, and here is what she said. She said, this message, meaning the three angels' message, it has to go to India, China, Africa, and to the islands of the sea. A.G. Daniels later wrote about his reaction when he listened to Ellen White speaking. And A.G. Daniels said, to enter those countries, to build schools, to learn all the difficult languages, medical institutions, all this seemed to us like the wildest kind of speculation. Do you hear this? So I think, in all honesty, that we as a church, we are a little bit losing that vision for the lost world. But it has been given to us through the writings of Ellen White. Today, as you know, the church is worldwide church. This is first, I believe, great contribution of Ellen White to the world at large and to the Adventist Church in particular. Let me mention the second great contribution of Ellen White. And for me, it is extremely important. This is the worldview that we have. Worldview. Maybe you are not aware of this, how important it is. If you look at the world, there are many worldviews today. If you go, for example, to Hindu or Buddhist, they have the circular worldview. If you go to the theory of evolution, it is different worldview. Adventists have their worldview in the very name that they have. We are called Seventh Day. And Seventh Day is there to remind us that there was a meaningful beginning of human history. That's why creation is so important to us. If you come to the streets of Birmingham today and you talk to somebody about the second coming of Christ, they would look at you as another lunatic. But if you speak about the meaningful beginning of human history, it is a different story. So we believe that there is a meaningful beginning of human history, that God created this planet and the whole universe. And if there is this is seventh day, Sabbath is reminding us of this meaningful beginning. But we also believe that there is a meaningful end of human history. This is the word Adventist. Seventh day, taking us back to the beginning of human history. And Adventist, it is taking us to the future. And if there is a meaningful beginning and if there is a meaningful end, we believe that human beings can have more meaningful present. And this is, you know, that there is only one text in the Bible which contains the definition of faith, This is Hebrews chapter 11. It says faith is being certain of what we hope for. This is the second coming. But then a $1 million question for you, like for children. What does it mean, the second sentence? Faith is being sure of what we hope for, second coming. And being certain of what we do not see. What is that? Being certain of what we do not see. The Greek word which is used there is blepomenon. And in verse 3, it is related to creation. So what is faith? Faith is to believe in the second coming, but it is also to believe on the basis of creation. So our worldview is, it is the great controversy. There was a meaningful beginning, but sin entered into the human history. There is a great controversy between evil and good today. But God will have the final saying in human history. This is our worldview. And this has been given to us through the writings of Ellen White. Let me speak about the third great relevance of Ellen White writings for the church and for the world at large. And this is the centrality of the Bible for our theology and our practice. And this is the tricky one. The role of Ellen White writings is to help us to better understand the Bible and to put it in practice. One more time. We believe what we believe on the basis of the Bible alone. The role of Ellen White writings is to help us to better understand the Bible and to put it in practice. Now, let me go one step further. If you ask a Roman Catholic, why do you believe what you believe? If he knows what his or her church believes, he will never tell you, I believe what I believe because the Bible says so. He will tell you, I believe what I believe because the church says so. In the Orthodox world, maybe you are less acquainted with the Russia, Greece, Romania, and all these Orthodox world. They don't have holy magisterium, Pope and cardinals, but they have the Bible and the tradition. But the tradition rules over the Bible. That's why I became an Adventist. You have a very complex theological issue when it comes to the human nature of Christ in the Bible itself. And because you have one set of text telling us that Jesus' human nature was exactly as ours. But there is another set of text telling us that his human nature was different than ours. And when you read this apparent tension in the Bible, and when you go to Ellen White's statement on human nature of Christ, you see exactly the same statements. I can speak for another hour about Ellen White's understanding of the human nature of Christ, but this is so well taken. When I read that, after studying the Bible, I told myself, this lady who didn't know Greek or Hebrew, although she had one Greek grammar in her library, it has to be something supernatural. So yes, Ellen White made a huge contribution to the nature of Christ. Let me mention something else. The righteousness by faith. You also know, this is not a secret, but that before 1888 General Conference, the position of all the leaders in Adventist Church on the justification issue was exactly like Roman Catholic position. That we are saved by faith and works. And that at that conference, and this is another lecture, or maybe 1 hour, I'm going just to mention this. Ellen White, in spite of all the leaders of that time, she took the position of these two young ministers. That's why today we have righteousness by faith in our church. So Ellen White did not bring out of her studies or visions any doctrine of our church. But every time our leaders, after studying the Bible, they were at the crossroads, there she was, with the prophetic gift to lead the church. And that's why I think I believe we would not exist as a church without that guidance. At the end, it is 1 o'clock. Let me mention one more thing and I'll stop. And this is health and healthful living. You all know here that this uneducated lady, she created one group of longest living people on planet Earth. And I think I can speak about another, but let me summarize what I said up to this point. Are Ellen White writings still relevant for our church? Yes, they are. We have been given, through the writings of Ellen White, the vision for the lost world. We have been given our worldview, how we perceive human history and reality as a whole. Through the writings of Ellen White, we have been given the centrality of the Bible in our theology and our practice. Ellen White, through the divine inspiration, explained to us human nature and nature of Christ. And of course, great contribution is justification by faith and health and healthful living. She also contributed to the structure of the church. She contributed to the human rights issue. And you know, I can speak also about this greatly. So I think we should be grateful to God for this spiritual gift that we have received as a church. And may God, you know, in the United States, they surveyed pastors, non-Adventist pastors, younger than 40 years of age. And they asked them, what are 3 favorite authors that you are using when you prepare your sermons? And pastors younger than 40 years of age, non-Adventists, they said that one of the 3 favorite authors they are using when they prepare sermons is Ellen White. If we don't use this great gift, maybe somebody else will. May God help us to hear the prophetic voice in our church. Amen.
Amen.